What's up guys, my name is Mike Versbro, and for today's video I want to talk about a way to improve your sunrise and sunset photos. Now during a sunrise or a sunset, numerous of elements in a scene may change during that transition period known as golden hour, and we're going to utilize this to our advantage to make our photo a little bit more interesting. So for example, I'm going to use this picture here of Lower Manhattan that I took from Jersey City. Now this shot I took in early dawn, and as you can see if I zoom in here, we have a bunch of lights that are still on with many of these buildings, and I got a nice golden reflection here in the Hudson River. Now a couple things I don't like are the birds that are perched here from that 30-second exposure. Many of them are blurry, and I also have a bunch of dead space in the sky as well. So I waited about 15 or 20 minutes, and I didn't move my tripod or my camera or anything like that, and I stayed in the same position. And I took another long exposure when some clouds rolled in, just to kind of make my sky a little bit more interesting. Now unfortunately there wasn't a bunch of color in the sky, but at least it still adds another element to this photograph. And if we zoom in, you can see though, a lot of the lights have dwindled, they've been turned off, or you just could barely see them because it's much brighter out now. And what I want to do is take elements from this photo and combine it with elements in this photo. Also, if we zoom in here, you can notice that a lot of the birds have flown away. I have a couple guys hanging out, which I could leave them because they're pretty sharp, or if I want, I could clone them out of there. And I lost some of that golden glow in the water here as well, so I could bring some of that back when I use my other image and blend the two together. Not only does this technique work really well with cityscapes, but you could also use this with landscape photography. In fact, a lot of landscape photographers do this all the time. They take pictures during golden hour and they highlight certain elements and combine them into one amazing photo. So what we're going to do here is just take these images and bring them into Photoshop. I already did some basic edits like lower the highlights and up my shadows, but I didn't do anything too crazy. Now I'm going to grab my two photos and go to Photo, Edit in, Open as layers in Photoshop. Now you actually might have more than two photos. You might have 3, 4, 5. Who knows during that golden hour what changed and what you want to combine into one photo. So just keep that in mind. I'm just using two photos just to make this process a little bit easier. Alright, here we are in Photoshop and we have our two images. And the first thing I want to do is make a copy. Just in case I do anything destructive, I always have my original photos down at the bottom here. And what I want to do is change my blending mode to lighten. And this is going to allow for all the brighter areas to show through, like the city lights. And as you can see, it made a mess of the sky, but don't worry, we're going to create a layer mask and grab a brush set to black. And I'm going to increase the opacity to around 75% because I want to keep the sky that had the cloud movement. So when I start painting away, it's going to reveal the clouds that are on the layer below it. Let's zoom in a little bit. And as I get closer to the city, I don't want to remove those lights too much, so I'm going to lower the opacity to around 20%. I'm going to carefully paint around the city buildings, and if I remove some of the lighting a little bit, I could always paint that back. It's not a big deal. But what I'm trying to do is create a nice gradual blend. Okay, so that looks pretty natural right there. If I zoom in here and I hit backslash key, I could see where my mask is. And if I want, I could switch to white, which it already did. Grab my brush and make it a little bit smaller. And I could paint back these buildings where I hit some of the lights and kind of make them pop out a little bit more. Alright, so that looks pretty good. You can see the water also got a little bit messed up, so we're gonna paint away some of that as well. Now I actually like the golden glow in the water from this photo, so I'm actually going to bring some of that back. So I'll show you how I do that. I'm going to make another copy of it and bring it all the way to the top, and then create a layer mask. Make sure it's on black. I'm going to fill the whole layer mask black. Now what I want to do is grab my brush, switch it to white, go on a really low opacity around, let's do 10%, with a pretty big brush. And I'm going to start painting back some of that golden glow. Now I'm happy with this photo, so I'm going to flatten it, make a copy, go to filter, go to the Nik collection if you have it, and then I like to use Color Effects Pro. And since I took a sunrise, I like to use a Skylight Filter. It does a really good job with sunrises and sunsets and just really enhances the colors nicely. You can see what it does right here. I'm going to show you guys the extreme really quick. Obviously that's way too much, but I like to keep it around 20 to 30%. So let's keep it at 20 for now. And then another filter I like to use is the Glamour Glow. Keep the saturation around 0 to 5%. And I'll keep the glow around 35-ish. And hit OK. That's all personal preference stuff. You could totally experiment with how you prefer to edit your images, but that's just some stuff I like to do to kind of enhance my sunrises and sunsets. So here's the before and after, and if you think you went a little too much, you could just lower the opacity and dial it down a little bit. So I'll put it at like 75%, and then I'm just gonna flatten this. If you want to make more changes, don't flatten, just save it out as a Photoshop file, and then you could always come back and make some more changes. But I'm just going to flatten for this video so you guys could see the difference between this photo versus the two photos by themselves. So hit save. Alright, so here we are back in Lightroom, and here's my original long exposure, and it looks okay, but it needs something with the city. It doesn't look alive. But when I do something like this where I blended the lights back in, now it gives that little extra pop that makes it stand out. And then same thing, if we go here in this photo, my sky just looks completely boring. And now I have a nice sky with some movement just to make it a little bit more interesting. So I took two average photos and I made it something more compelling, more interesting to my audience. So that's the message of today's video, to try and experiment by taking photos at different times and then grabbing those elements from each of those photos that stand out the most and creating a nice, unique photograph. So have fun experimenting. I hope this helps you guys out. Take care. Bye-bye. Hey you. Yeah, you. Before you leave, please hit that like and subscribe button. Also, if you want to support this channel, please check out my affiliate links down below. It's what I use and recommend. And lastly, be sure to follow me on Instagram, where you can see pictures that I post when I travel for inspiration, and I sometimes do free giveaways. So check it all out. Thanks and goodbye.